The South African National Space Agency has issued a severe space weather alert, warning of potential voltage control challenges on the energy grid. The severe geomagnetic storm is forecast for Friday through to Sunday. And to break down the complexities of solar storms, we're now joined by SANSA Head of Space Weather, Dr. Mpho Tshisaphungo, and she now joins us now via our video link. Ma'am, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I mean, just looking at the title of the story and trying to research on what this all means, maybe perhaps just tell us in layman's terms, what is a solar storm?
Thank you very much. So a solar storm is the sun when there is an explosion on the sun. So the sun has some activities happening on the sun. So when that activity, there's an explosion like eruption of charged particles from the sun, we call it a solar storm. Sometimes those solar storms, those charged particles, they are associated with coronal mass ejection, like a plasma, which is being ejected from the sun, and then it can propagate towards the earth. Sometimes it propagates away from the earth, but sometimes it comes towards the earth. When it comes towards the earth, it can interact with our earth magnetic field. And when it interacts with our earth magnetic field, it disturbs all those satellite signals which are orbiting up in space, and it can affect our technological systems.
And, you know, zooming into how it actually impacts Earth, I know that you've touched a bit on it. You know, how does it actually affect any South African who's seeing you right now on TV explaining this solar storm?
So normally, because the Earth has a magnetic field, so we are like protected by the Earth magnetic field. So the radiation from the sun, it will not directly affect us. But what happens is that most of the technologies like satellite which are orbiting up in space, they are the ones which they can be affected by these energetic particles which are coming from the sun. And then it interferes with your navigation and internet, satellite communication. So for us to impact us, it means that we are reliant on technological systems like your GPS, your navigation, your satellite communication, and that can be affected. So you might lose your communication during a severe space weather event.
And is this only forecast for South Africa, or is this a global forecast, you know, for the rest of the globe? You know, who is it going to actually affect? Which countries?
So this is the space weather. It's a global phenomenon, but the impact is mostly regional. So whatever happens on the sun, everybody's looking at it around the globe. So with the regional impact, we use our ground-based instrument to monitor the severity of the impact. So the impact will be different from different regions, but mostly the high latitude regions are mostly affected because the Earth magnetic field, they connect on the North Pole as well as the South Pole. So most of these energetic particles, they enter into our Earth atmosphere on the North Pole and the South Pole. These are high latitude regions. That's why also we see this phenomena called the auroras, the northern lights and the southern lights. It's because that's where the interaction of these energetic particles from the sun, they start there. But if we have a severe space weather event, these northern lights and southern lights, they can also be seen in mid-latitude regions.
And, you know, I'm sure South Africans are asking themselves, I mean, we've been struggling when it comes to load shedding, and, you know, we've had electricity now for quite some time. And I'm sure they're asking themselves, you know, does this have the potential to affect the power grid?
So I will talk about the previous studies, because this storm, the storm of this severity has been it has been measured before. In 2003, there was a Halloween storm. We also reached a G5 storm. And there are some evidence that some of the power grids were affected by the storm of this magnitude. But it doesn't happen immediately, so it takes some time to have the impact.
And I mean, you speak about that it's happened before, especially in our country. Maybe perhaps just take us through that. When it took place before, what actually happened in the country?
So I'll just speak on the article which has already been written. I think they measured what is called the GIC, the geomagnetically induced currents. So those are the currents measured in the power line systems, and those some of the stations were actually impacted by space weather during that storm. So with this storm that we have just observed from yesterday, depending on what data we will have to back up our evidence of the impact, we will actually see what was the severity of the impact of this storm when we actually analyze the data.
Is there anything that South Africans can do, to protect themselves? Is there anything that the likes of Eskom can do to protect the power grid, just to ensure that it doesn't really harm anyone in that course?
What I will say, maybe I will not speak on behalf of the industry, but from the South African National Space Agency's perspective, what we do is we will work with our data, and whoever a stakeholder is willing to share the data with us for us to do a case study of looking at the impact, we can. However, we do inform the different sectors that may be impacted by space weather, and they can decide on how best to mitigate the impact of space weather.
Dr. Tshisaphungo, thank you so much for your time. Very interesting topic there that you are touching on, something that many of us can learn from. Certainly from my side, I've learned something new, especially when it comes to solar storms.